There is a $1 billion industry built on one single idea, that aging is something that happens to you, that it is a problem, that it must be fought, hidden, slowed down, corrected, erased, preferably before anyone notices it happening. And women, especially women, have been the primary target of that fear for generations. Walk into any pharmacy and count the products on the shelves. Read the language on the labels: anti-aging, repair, reverse, restore, youth-boosting, age-defying. Every word is a small war. Every word implies that what is happening to your body is a defeat. That time itself is your enemy. That the woman you are becoming, the one with more years, more experience, more depth, is somehow less than the girl you once were. This is the story they have been selling, and it is extraordinarily profitable. But for thousands of years, before the creams, before the surgeries, before the advertisements, before the entire apparatus of modern beauty culture was constructed, Native American elder women carried a completely different understanding of what it means to grow old. Not a poorer understanding, not a naive one, a deeper one. One that had been tested over centuries, one that had been passed from woman to woman, in circles, by firelight, in the quiet spaces between daily life and ceremony. One that treated the elder woman not as someone fading from relevance, but as someone arriving at it. 5 truths, ancient, quietly preserved, rarely spoken outside the circle. And if you hear them, really hear them, not just read the words, but let them settle into the part of you that already suspects the modern story is incomplete, you will never be able to look at growing older the same way again. Truth number 3 is the one that changes the most people, because it reframes something every woman has been told to hide. And truth number 5 is the one the elders saved for last, because it requires everything that came before it to truly be understood. These are the truths they never wanted women to know, because if you knew them, you would stop being afraid, and fear is what they sell. Truth number 1, your lines are a map, not a warning. Before we go further, I want you to do something. Think about the last time you looked in the mirror and noticed a new line on your face, a deeper crease around the eyes, a softness along the jaw that wasn't there 5 years ago, and felt something other than acceptance, a flicker of disappointment, a quiet grief, a wish that you could undo what you saw. Most women know that feeling. Almost all of them feel some version of shame about having it. They've been taught that the lines themselves are the problem, and then taught to feel additionally bad for caring about the lines. It's a remarkably efficient trap. Here is what the elder women understood. Every line on a woman's face is a record. It is a mark left by something that happened, a grief that moved through her, a laughter that lasted, a worry she carried for someone she loved, a winter she endured, a season of joy that used up all her smiles. The face of a woman who has lived is not a face that is breaking down. It is a face that is accumulating evidence. Think of it this way. A map of a well-traveled country is covered in lines, roads, rivers, borders, mountain ranges. The more life the map contains, the more lines it holds. You would not look at a richly detailed map and say, "This is damaged. This needs to be smoothed out." The lines are the problem. The lines are precisely what make the map useful. They are what tell you where the water flows, where the high ground is, where the path has already been cleared by someone who came before. The elder women looked at their own faces that way, and they looked at each other's faces that way. A woman with deep lines around her eyes had laughed often, or cried deeply, or spent years looking into the sun to see what was coming on the horizon. Any of those things was honorable. All of them together were a kind of wealth, the shame of aging, the specific, culturally reinforced shame that tells women their faces are failing them, is not ancient. It is modern. It was manufactured. It arrived with the industries that profit from it, and it replaced something that had existed for a very long time before it: reverence. The original relationship between women and the visible marks of age was not shame, it was reverence. The elder woman's face was looked at with respect, not pity. Her lines were read, not erased. She was seen as someone who had accumulated something, not lost something. This doesn't mean aging is always easy. It doesn't mean the body's changes don't sometimes bring discomfort or challenge. But there is an enormous difference between honestly experiencing the difficulties of physical change and being ashamed of your own face for bearing witness to your own life. One is human. The other is a story someone sold you. Your lines are not a warning. They are not a signal that something has gone wrong. They are the most honest thing about you, the record of a life that has actually been lived, in a body that has actually been used, by a woman who has actually been here. That is not something to correct. That is something to read. Truth number 2. The body slows down, so the soul can finally catch up. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that lives in younger women, not just physical tiredness, though that is real, but a deeper kind of exhaustion that comes from moving through life faster than you can process it, from accumulating experiences without having the time or space to understand what they mean, from living at a pace that leaves no room for the question, what is actually happening to me, and does it matter? Youth is fast. Youth almost has to be fast. There is so much to do, so much to prove, so much to establish. The early decades of a woman's life are often a long sprint. Build something, raise something, achieve something, become something. Keep moving. Don't stop. Stopping is dangerous because stopping means falling behind, and falling behind means failing, and failing means the sentence rarely gets finished, but the fear at the end of it drives the pace. Here is what the elder women understood: the slowing that comes with age, the body's gradual shift toward a less frantic rhythm, is not the beginning of the end. It is the beginning of a different relationship with time. And that different relationship is not a consolation prize for losing speed. It is the actual destination. The soul moves more slowly than the young body. This is not a deficiency of the soul. It is simply that the soul is doing a different kind of work. The work of integration, of meaning-making, of understanding the shape of a life from the inside. That work requires space. It requires stillness. It requires the kind of unhurried attention that is nearly impossible to give when you are sprinting. Young women often feel, in their most honest moments, like they are always slightly behind themselves, like their life is happening faster than they can absorb it, like the events pile up and the feelings pile up, and there is never quite enough time to sit with any of it long enough to know what it means. The slowing of age changes this. Women who have genuinely made peace with the changed rhythm of their later years describe something that sounds, to younger ears, almost impossible. They describe arriving, not at a destination exactly, but at a pace that finally allows them to be present to their own life, to notice what they are feeling while they are feeling it, to understand what something meant while it is still happening, rather than years later in retrospect. This is not passive. It is not resignation. It is one of the most profound forms of attention a human being can bring to their own existence. The elder women who taught this were not women who had given up. They were women who had finally, after decades of sprinting, been given the gift of slowing down enough to see clearly. And what they saw, the depth of what became visible when the pace finally allowed it, was something the sprinting years had moved past too quickly to reveal. Your body is not failing you when it slows. It is finally offering you the conditions you need to understand your own life. The soul has been waiting for this. Before we continue, truth number 3 is coming next, and it is the one I have seen stop women mid-sentence when they hear it, because it directly contradicts something they were taught to believe about themselves their entire lives. Truth number 3, elder women are the memory of the people. Without them, the community forgets who it is. This one requires some honesty about what modern culture has done. Modern culture has a particular relationship with older women. It tolerates them. It sometimes celebrates them in a careful, bounded way. The inspirational grandmother, the distinguished silver-haired exception who is praised precisely because she doesn't seem old, because she has remained vigorous and relevant and productive by the standards of younger people. The message, even in the celebration, is clear. You are acceptable because you have not fully become what you are becoming. And when older women do become fully what they are becoming, when they slow down, when they step back from economic productivity, when they stop performing relevance by the metrics of youth, the culture tends to move its attention elsewhere. They become background. They become quiet. They become, in the most brutal social sense, invisible. This is one of the most catastrophic losses of modern life. And most people don't even know it is happening. Here is what the elder women understood, what the communities that preserved these teachings understood at a structural level. The elder women were not the background. They were the center. not because of sentiment, not because of tradition for its own sake, but because of function, because of what elder women actually do that no one else in a community can do. They are the memory. Every community, every family, every culture exists in time. It has a past that shapes its present and will shape its future. That past doesn't exist only in documents or formal records. It exists in the people who were there, in the women who remember what actually happened, not the official version, not the tidy narrative, but the lived texture of events, the emotional truth of moments, the things that were said in private and never written down. When those women are gone, that memory is gone. And when that memory is gone, the community loses its ability to understand itself. It loses the thread that connects it to where it came from. It begins to repeat mistakes it has already made, because the women who remembered making them are no longer there to say, "We tried this before, and here is what happened." The elder women in these traditions were the keepers of that thread. They were the ones who held the stories, the real stories, the complete stories, not the abbreviated ones. They were the ones who could look at a young woman in crisis and say, "Your grandmother felt exactly this, and here is how she found her way through." They were the ones who could look at a community making a decision and say, "I remember when we made this choice before, and I can tell you what it cost." This is not a small function. This is not a supplementary function. This is, in many ways, the most essential function any member of a community can serve. And modern culture has built an entire system that renders it invisible. The older woman who no longer fits the productivity metrics of economic life, who has stepped back from the visible roles that earn social recognition, who is slower and less frantic and less available to the pace of modern exchange. She is not less valuable. She is holding something that no one younger can hold, because no one younger has been alive long enough to hold it. Her presence in a family, in a community, is not a weight. It is an archive. It is a living library of everything the community would otherwise forget. And when she is treated as background, when she is moved to the margins, when she is made invisible, the community doesn't just lose her. It loses access to its own past. It loses the ability to understand itself across time. You are not becoming irrelevant. You are becoming the one who remembers. And the people around you, whether they know it or not, need that more than almost anything else you could give them. Truth number 4. What you have survived is not baggage. It is authority. There is a particular kind of conversation that only certain women can have. It is the conversation that happens in the hardest moments, when someone is facing something enormous, something that feels unbearable, something that has broken open the ordinary assumptions of life. A diagnosis, a loss, a betrayal, a grief that doesn't follow the expected timeline, a fear that cannot be reasoned away. In those moments, there are things that can be said and things that cannot, not because they are prohibited, but because some words simply do not carry weight unless they come from a specific place. A young woman with no losses can say, "It will be okay." The words are kind, the intention is genuine, but they land lightly because they are not yet rooted in anything that has been tested. An elder woman who has buried a parent, raised a child through illness, lost a marriage, rebuilt a life from what remained, she says the same words, and they land differently. Not because she is older, because she has been somewhere, because she has crossed terrain that the younger woman has only heard described, and the person in crisis can feel that difference. They can feel that these words are not theoretical. They come from knowledge. They come from having survived. Here is what the elder women understood. Everything you have been through, the losses, the labors, the griefs, the failed beginnings and hard endings, the years that cost you something, and the seasons that required everything you had, none of it is baggage. None of it is weight you should wish you could put down. All of it, every piece of it, is what gives you authority. Not authority in the institutional sense, not the authority of titles or credentials or social position. The authority that cannot be faked and cannot be bought and cannot be abbreviated. The authority of someone who has actually been there. The things that feel, from the inside, like wounds, they are also credentials. The experiences that felt like they might break you. They are precisely what built the capacity you now carry. The grief you moved through did not just leave a scar. It left a knowledge of how grief moves, of what it needs, of how long it actually takes, of what helps and what doesn't. That knowledge is not available any other way. You cannot read your way to it. You cannot be trained in it. You can only earn it, the way you earned it, by going through. This is why the elder women were the ones who sat with the dying, not just because they were available, not just because they were gentle, but because they were the ones who were not afraid. They had seen enough, lost enough, survived enough, that the territory of deep human experience did not terrify them the way it terrified those who had not yet been there. They could sit in the room without needing to fix it, without needing the person to feel better quickly so that the discomfort would end. They could simply be present to the full weight of what was happening because they had the capacity for it. And that capacity was not innate. It was built over decades by everything they had survived. What you carry from your hardest years is not a burden. It is the most specific, most hard-won, most genuinely useful thing you have to offer another human being. When a younger woman comes to you in crisis, or when the moment arrives, as it always does, when your experience is the only thing that can reach someone where they are, you will not wish you had lived a smoother life. You will understand in that moment exactly why you went through what you went through. It made you capable of this. Your survival is not something to recover from. It is something to inhabit. Truth number 5. The most powerful years are the ones lived without needing to prove anything. This one takes the longest to arrive, and it is the one the elders saved for last, because without the foundation of the first 4 truths, it can be mistaken for something it isn't. It can be mistaken for giving up, for not caring anymore, for a kind of defeat dressed up as peace. It is the opposite of all of those things. Here is what happens. Gradually, if a woman is paying attention, as the decades pass, the performances begin to feel unnecessary. Not all at once, not dramatically, but bit by bit, the enormous energy that was once devoted to managing how you appear, to presenting the right version of yourself to the right people at the right moments, begins to feel like a poor investment. Not because you stop caring about people, but because you begin to understand, with a clarity that only comes from years of experience, that the approval you were performing for was never as reliable as you needed it to be. You spent decades crafting a version of yourself that would be acceptable, that would be recognized, that would earn the nod from the people whose nods you needed. And sometimes it worked, and you felt the relief of it. And sometimes it didn't work, and you felt the devastation of it. And eventually, if you lived long enough and paid attention, you began to notice that neither the relief nor the devastation was telling you anything true about who you actually were. You were chasing something that could not hold your weight. The elder women who had fully arrived at this truth were some of the most distinctive people in any community. Not because they were dramatic or provocative, but because they were relaxed in a way that most people are not. They said what they thought. They wore what they wanted. They spent their time on what mattered to them. They were not performing. And the absence of the performance, the sheer, quiet absence of it, was something other people could feel. It felt like freedom, and it was. But here is what the elders understood that the younger women often missed when they watched them. This was not a freedom that had been taken. It was not a freedom that had been given. It was a freedom that had been earned, slowly, over years, through the accumulation of every truth that came before it. Through learning to see your lines as a map rather than a warning. Through learning to value the deeper rhythm of a slower life. Through understanding your role as the memory of those around you. Through recognizing that what you had survived was not damage, but authority. The woman who arrives at the 5th truth without the first 4 tends to mistake it for carelessness. She thinks, the elder women stopped trying because they were tired. She thinks they stopped performing because they had given up on being seen. But that is not what happened. What happened is that they were finally seen clearly enough by themselves that the external validation became genuinely, structurally unnecessary. Not because they had suppressed the need for it, but because something had replaced it, something more stable, something that did not rise and fall with the opinions of people who had not lived what they had lived. This is the final arrival, not a destination in the sense of a place you stay, but a threshold you cross, a way of inhabiting your own life from the inside rather than managing it from the outside. The energy that was once consumed by the performance becomes available for other things, for the conversations that actually matter, for the relationships that can hold real weight, for the work that your specific, particular, hard-earned life has made you capable of. This is what the elders meant when they spoke of the power of the later years. Not the power of youth, kinetic, outward, needing to make an impression, but the power of someone who has nothing left to prove and therefore nothing to lose and therefore complete freedom to simply be what they actually are. It is the rarest kind of power, and it is not available to the young, no matter how gifted they are. It can only be earned by living. The industry will keep selling you fear. That is what it does. That is what it has always done. It will find new languages and new products and new ways to frame the story that your aging body is a problem, that the years are taking something from you, that the right combination of interventions can restore what has been lost. It will keep selling this story because the story is profitable, and it will keep being profitable as long as women believe that what they are becoming is less than what they were. But you now know 5 things they never wanted you to know. Your lines are a map. Every mark on your face is evidence of a life actually lived, not a failure to maintain an earlier version of yourself, but a record of everything that has passed through you and everything you have seen. Your slowness is wisdom. The body that moves at a different pace than it once did is offering you something the frantic years could not, the conditions to finally understand your own life while you are living it. Your presence is memory. The people around you, your family, your community, the younger women who will come after you, need what you carry more than they know. You are the thread that connects them to where they came from. Without you, they forget. Your survival is authority. Everything you have endured has not damaged you. It has built you into the specific, particular person who is capable of certain conversations, certain presences, certain kinds of help that no one younger can offer. That is not a scar. That is a credential. And your freedom, the freedom that comes when you stop needing to perform, when the approval of others becomes genuinely unnecessary, when you can finally inhabit your own life from the inside, that is the most powerful thing a woman can carry. Not in spite of your years, because of them. Which of these 5 truths do you most need to hear today? The one about the lines, the one about the rhythm, the one about memory, the one about survival, or the one about freedom? Leave it in the comments, because you are not the only woman who needs to read what you write. And if this reached someone you love, share it with her. These truths were always meant to be passed on.